Welcome to the Co-Creative Sessions, your access point for knowledge and expertise from artists, creatives, changemakers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts in the South Coast and beyond.
Whether you know it or not, your environment does play a big role in your work.
I'd recommend anytime you find something that's really effective, break it down.
The idea is to get started today. Avoid overthinking it.
The Co-Creative Sessions is funded by Mass Development TDI and the Barr Foundation as part of the TDI Creative Cities Initiative to boost arts-based economic development. This program is also supported in part by a grant from the New Bedford and Dartmouth local cultural councils, local agencies which are supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency. And now, the Co-Creative Sessions.
And thank you for joining us for the latest entry in the Co-Creative Session. I'm Scott Bishop. I'll be moderating tonight's session. Tonight's presenter is Midori Evans, founder of Midori Creativity. Midori believes in a world full of creative expression with people who celebrate their creativity every day. Her creativity coaching business offers individual coaching, group workshops, and community projects to encourage that connection. A lifelong creative explorer, Midori loves to travel and is a gifted writer, photographer, musician, and educator, drawing on the inspiration of the natural world in her work. Midori recently curated Meditations on Landscape, a text imagery exhibition of the creative process in one's home landscape. She currently runs Artist Share, a monthly artist critique group, and seasonal Artist Ways group classes. Look for her creativity exercises in the book, The Creativity Workbook for Coaches and Creatives, edited by Eric Maisel, as well as her chapters in transformational journaling for coaches, therapists, and clients, and the upcoming The Great Book of Journaling, How Journal Writing Can Support a Life of Wellness, Creativity, Meaning, and Purpose, both edited by Linda Monk and Eric Maisel. If you have any questions for Midori during the session, please drop them in the chat. She'll answer them at the end of the session unless there's a question pertaining to one of the exercises you'll be participating in. In that case, we'll ask Midori those questions as they come up. And now, here's Midori.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful that you're all here today, and I'm excited to spend the next hour with you. So you already understand a little bit about what Midori Creativity does, and hopefully you all got the instructions to bring along some pens, colored markers, whatever, some paper, so that you're spending a little bit of time tonight not on your computer, engaging with a different tool. So if you could, I'd love it if you could get those out. For the first couple of minutes, I actually won't be saying anything. I'm just going to be presenting a few slides. What I want you to do is just take them in, whatever happens to be coming up for you. Have some sort of a framework for yourself going into this with the idea of maybe a specific creative project that you've been blocked on. One of the best things that you can do to make better friends with your creative work is to expand how you define it for yourself. Your creative work obviously is not just a single project, but it does tend to be a concept that we think about in a very similar way with one definition. And what I want to explore a little bit tonight is how can you look at the different facets of your creative work? What are its moods? When does it come to visit you in certain ways and in certain forms? What are the parts and the pieces of your creative work? When you begin to understand this, you really begin to create a relationship with your work, as opposed to just saying, hey, there it is. And we really want to dive into the richness of that relationship. But I'm guessing that for most of you, this is how it usually feels. That's why you're here at this workshop, right? We all experience this. Human beings, we're creatives. It feels overwhelming sometimes. You can feel blocked, feeling unproductive, feeling frustrated. Why is it so hard to do the work that you know you care about? I hear about the same blocks over and over again in my work as a creativity coach. So one good thing is you're not alone. You might not be having the exact same experience as someone else, but there is a commonality in how we relate to the things that really matter to us. And creative work obviously really matters to us. So I'm just going to start you off with a really short writing exercise, just 3 minutes. I'll keep an eye on the timer. And all you're doing is thinking of a specific creative project that you were recently blocked on. And try not to name the details of the work. Try to think about what were the frustrations, what were the feelings, where were you when you were trying to do this, and the work wasn't getting done. So if you can dive into those feelings a little bit, I'll just turn on the timer and I'll give you a heads up when it's about 30 seconds before the time is up. Okay, so 3 minutes. Okay, it's been about 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And about 3 minutes. So just wrap up your last sentence or two. I'm going to continue. You, of course, can continue writing in the background if you still have a few thoughts to record. So what we've got on the screen in front of us right now is probably only a very small subset of blocks that people experience. There's probably many of them here, if not all of them, that you've dealt with at some point in time. And there's just so many of them, it could take a lifetime to really explore. Tonight, we're going to focus on two that are not here. But I just want to acknowledge that we're all coming into this with in a different place with our creative work. So there might be something here that's really important to you that you can explore at some other point. The piece that I find the most important about a block that continues to come into your life is primarily that it has a story to tell you. So if there's one of them here, 2 or 3 of them on the screen that just keep reappearing and keep reappearing, it's really important that we don't do everything we're about to talk about, because most of the time we avoid them. We avoid these blocks. We just, nope, it's not really there. Or we ignore them. Definitely experienced isolating them, right? Just, put them off in the closet. I'm just not going to look at them over there. Sometimes we yell at them. We desperately want them to go away. But what we don't do is actually get to know them. So there's a reason that they're there, and they have a story to tell you. It can be really exciting to explore how to get to know a block in a way that might open a new pathway. It might give you a new way of experiencing yourself or your work, if you're able to really dive in and understand what is that block really doing here. So we're going to do another brief exercise. The crucial thing I want you to focus on in this one is that last question, is do you welcome any of the blocks into your life? So the framework here is write about it, how it would feel as if they were people in your life. So go back to the first slide that we showed tonight. All of these people, some of them come into your life for a brief time, some of them are here forever. Are those blocks certain types of people? Are they your friends? Are they your acquaintances? How do you run into them? Or do you not run into them? Do you run away screaming when they try to come into your life? Where does this happen? How often do they visit? And do you welcome any of them when they show up? Just making sure we're good. No questions about the writing exercises. Okay, so I'll turn on the timer again. I'll let you know when it's close to 5 minutes. It's about 5 minutes, please. Just about 1 minute left. We're going to now dive into 2 more blocks. And the reason that I chose the next 2 is there's different categories of blocks. So there's the sort of category of the anxiety, the depression, the fatigue, the kind of the physical and emotional blocks that we can run into. There's blocks that have to do with not having the right tools or not having the right skills, but still wanting to be doing some work and knowing that you haven't quite got all your ducks in a row, so to speak. But the next 2 that we're going to talk about, I've found that almost everyone I've ever talked to has experienced this in one way or another. And they're so distinct from whether or not you're carrying a specific wound or carrying a certain tendency to be more depressed or more anxious. And the first one, I call it seeing beyond the work, is when you take yourself out of today and the work that's in front of you, and in your mind, in your thoughts, you're just beyond some point in the future. You're jumping beyond the steps that you need to do. And those doubts and the fears that come up when you let yourself do this, essentially, in some form or another, mean that you talk yourself out of it before you even do the work. Or you give up halfway through. You know, maybe you've made a great start, but somehow you're here, and instead of getting up in the morning and doing what's in front of you, you're just getting lost in the thoughts of whether or not that work will be well received, whether or not you'll be able to get it done, whatever that thought process that's going on for you. The second one is either or dynamics. I picked 2 scenarios. I'm sure you could come up with many more. Either you're an amazing writer, dancer, sculptor, painter, or you're just terrible at it. 2 total opposites. Either you're working with all of your heart and soul and pouring yourself into your work, or what's the point? Why should you do it? I'm not going to bother to do any work, etc., etc. And for both of these scenarios, I found that part of the solution is to create some space. You could be creating physical space. That's not really necessarily what I'm talking about, but for some people, you know, clearing their desk or having a better working setup can make a difference. But I mean emotional space. And now we're circling back to the very beginning of the presentation with this idea that your creative work is multifaceted. And how can you get to know it if you're thinking of it as a singular piece of work or a singular part of yourself? Creating space is just as complex as having a relationship with someone. So think of the last time you had a conflict with somebody you cared about and you thought, oh, I've got the perfect way to fix this. And of course, they had the complete opposite idea. So this is a complex process, but it's a way forward. And the steps that lie between the 2 ends, and by the 2 ends, I just mean for the either or, it's obviously the either or the or. And in the seeing beyond your work, it's the end of, are you in the future in your thoughts, or are you in today in the now? And they're so simple. And I'm sure that during the breakout rooms, you guys were having conversations. We discover this along the way. in our own way, but we have to stop thinking. The work is in front of us, and we stop thinking. When I've taught this course in the past, one of the examples that has come up about stopping thinking is pretending that you're emptying the dishwasher. I've never met a single person who pauses when they're about to empty their dishwasher and says, in 10 years, someone's going to come and look at my dishwasher and figure out whether or not I emptied it properly. And yet that's what we do to ourselves when we're stopping ourselves from doing our work, is we put all of the meaning into our thoughts and into the future and into whatever is going on up there. And we forget that we have a task in front of us. So you stop thinking. I know it sounds really simple, but you name the next thing that's in front of you. It could be as simple as, I can't work on this today. I mean, that's a next step. That's clarity about what other things are calling you in your life. Okay, I really want to do this. It's tomorrow. That could be the next step. It could be buying the next supplies. It could be cleaning up for 2 minutes before you sit down to work. But it's this never-ending process of just the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, so that you are separating your work time from your feeling time. We're supposed to have all of these deep feelings about our creative work because we care and we're pouring ourselves into it. So it would be just crazy not to have that depth. But we need to figure out a way to say, I have work in front of me. I'm emptying the dishwasher. And I can think and feel about it either tonight, or you could even allocate yourself a few minutes before you sit down to work. Write it down on a piece of paper. 2 pieces of paper in front of you. Work time, feeling time. Which one are you in? Pick up the piece of paper. Okay, I'm in feeling time right now. All right, I'll sit there and I'll manufacture all of those doubts or that feeling of imperfection or whatever is bothering you. And then, nope, I'm standing up and I'm emptying my dishwasher. The idea was to go on and do another writing exercise. I do want to just check and see if there's any questions or how people are doing. Just sort of a quick thumbs up if you're on video. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can get through another writing exercise. So this one is you choose either the either or dynamic, or you choose seeing beyond the work. You write about a creative project where you've succumbed to one of these blocks. And your job now is to try to focus on whatever intermediate steps would keep you out of that negative thought cycle. So it could be, I'm working on this book, and here are that next and that next and that next, the small little steps, the small baby steps. Or it could be more along the lines of, how can you be with, capture, harness the kind of thinking that you use when you're doing a mundane task in your life. And I do not mean to imply that you shouldn't feel passionately about your creative work. I'm trying to capture a little bit of what the brain does when it goes on autopilot. Like, okay, I'm emptying the dishwasher. Okay, I'm doing the laundry. If you can have even a bit of that when you're doing your creative work, it's just those little bits of space. That's all you need, right? You build in that little bit of protective space so you can do your work and then dive into the negative stuff later when your work's done for the day. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking. I'll turn on the timer, 6 minutes-ish, and then we'll check.
Is beyond the work when you get ahead of yourself, correct?
Yeah, seeing beyond the work is when you're here in today and there's a specific amount of work in front of you for a certain project, but in your mind, you're like 5 years in the future, or you're 3 months in the future saying, why would I ever think anybody would read that book? Therefore, I won't write it. Right? Yeah, I'm seeing everybody smile, so I think you all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'll turn on the timer. Just about 1 minute left. As you wrap up your writing, you can come on back into the main session. And we're close enough towards the hour that we can open it up for Q&A, or we can just have another conversation for a few minutes. What I've put up on the screen is, again, a number of different blocks that you might have experienced. So feel free to talk about either stuff that's come up during the workshop or something that's on the screen, if anybody wants to ask a question.
I have a comment.
Yep.
When I was writing, I realized that I could possibly have more control than I thought, and like what you were talking about, also like the thoughts and making space and stopping the thinking.
Yep.
I like that. Just not letting my head run around with me, because I'm in the group. I mentioned that my parents had a real negative impact on me. Even to today, I can still hear their voice saying, you know, don't do this and don't do that, and you're going to fail and you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell myself that, like, it's probably what I'm realizing now is their definition of success, and my definition of success can be different. And what made me happy doesn't make them happy. So, you know, like, actually, once it's making space for my own definition, I think it's going to help me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. Thank you for sharing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the process, the way to balance the end result and the process? I find that the thinking about the creative end result is much more exciting than all the dishwasher washing the dishes in between, and it's hard to get involved with each individual dish.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, it's the kind we're all different, right? But what comes to my mind is that as long as you know that you need to do both, you can allocate certain amounts of time for both. So I definitely went through a phase where I was doing so much visioning work, right? And almost every single night I had out my markers and my giant pieces of paper, and you know, I would need 10 lifetimes to have been able to accomplish what I was doing with those vision boards. And yet that was feeding me. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is that you need that. You need that creative energy to feed you. So great, right? Don't let go of that, but make it have a certain place and time in your life. So I did it in the evening because I couldn't afford to not be getting done what I needed to get done during the day. But also, here's another thought is, and I have done this before when I've been really, really stuck, is I do have certain dishes that are more beautiful than others. And I will sometimes purposely go and get a certain dish and like make my lunch and eat it with that dish or with that, you know, teacup or something, to kind of give myself a little treat while I'm washing the dishes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Can I say something about the girl that shared a minute ago about her parents?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that I felt like that was her really showing a lot of compassion, even towards her parents. And what a beautiful way to like embrace your creativity, and not through having to like make something like negative positive, but to like embrace compassion on both sides. And that was really beautiful. And I appreciated her sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and it is. It's about relationship, right? It's a relationship with ourselves, relationship with all of these parts, relationship with the wounds that are coming back to haunt us. So yeah, thank you, Deborah.
Thanks again to you, Midori. Thanks again to the co-creative crew, and thanks to everyone who joined this session, and have a great evening.
Thanks for joining us for the co-creative sessions. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions and view previous sessions in the series by visiting the Co-Creative Center's events page at cocreativenb.org. The Co-Creative Sessions is funded by Mass Development TDI and the Barr Foundation as part of the TDI Creative Cities Initiative to boost arts-based economic development. This program is also supported in part by a grant from the New Bedford and Dartmouth local cultural councils, local agencies, which are supported by the Mass Cultural Council, a state agency. We look forward to seeing you at the next Co-Creative Session.